let's talk about the pioneering book. Let's talk. I'm so excited about this. I thought we
Oh,
could start with sort of how the book starts, right? With the strategic partnering. Now, I love that word. Why do organizations actually need a system to do
mhm.
this? What
Well,
makes this different? What is going to make this stand out?
I think what have realized over the last 7 to 10 years as we've been doing this for clients
Yeah.
is it isn't the binary world we used to operate in, right? And social media, digital transformation, everybody's a tech company. All of these trends have made this flywheel influencer network average of 35 touches before a tech deal closes from different people and organizations. How are you going to do it alone? And the companies who think they can do it alone, if you look at the SaaS companies, they're not usually successful. The ones that build partnering from the start are the most successful. And you see that in Atlassian, you see that in ServiceNow, you see that in
Yeah.
Salesforce. And partnering doesn't mean a channel to market it. Partnering means this ecosystem of influencers. It could be channels, it could be transactional channels, but there's all different kinds of partnering that create the flywheel.
I agree. I agree. When I was leading, I always made sure the partner, whatever that, like you just said, it could be a number of different partners. I always made sure they were part of the business review and the deal review because they would bring a new perspective to the table,
Great.
which,
That's
right?
fantastic.
Yeah, and the sales team and our internal sales team of customer
Mhm.
success, solution engineers, right? All
Mhm.
all the, sales, of course, the salesperson, they
Uh-huh.
would have a perspective of where the deal was and how it was progressing.
Yeah.
But boy, did we have fun when we brought partners in because we would get a whole different story
Mhm.
sometimes. And, then we were learning, then we were collaborating, then we were
It's
breaking
a
doors
great
down because
example.
we had different perspectives. What do we watch out for with partners? I mean, we're talking about this all positive and it's all loving and we're just we're
Yeah.
just we're just rocking the world with partners.
Mhm.
When does it not work?
Several, and you'll see this in the back. So one is you can't partner with everybody at the same level. And
Mm,
there's a whole segmentation about how you pick, by the way, how do you pick your partners and
yeah,
how do you pick the people in your partners? Because
yeah,
you can't partner with everybody at the same company at the same level. We just
yeah,
don't have enough bandwidth to do that, right?
right.
So picking is one. Look, transparency and honesty and candor, even when you're not going to partner with that company, in the long run, that is really important. And so learning how to do that and learning how to have those kinds of muscles and know when to say something and know when not. And,
Yeah.
that's an art that you have to learn. The other thing about partnering too is understanding what your partners really care about. I still think so many of us go into it with what we want out of the partnership.
Mm,
And if you're really gonna partner, you've gotta do it for both.
mm.
And then you can also over rotate and make it all about your partner, and that doesn't work either. So it's kind of a middle ground that we have to find.
I always say it's like a relationship, a personal relationship. If you've
Mhm.
got a partner or you're married or whatever, it's like, I talk about the give versus get principle. If you go into the relationship to give and not get, and you both do that, it's just there's nothing you can't do.
Right. I know, that's true. That's like the personal relationships and the business relationships, they sort of intersect in this world.
They really do, and they never used to, but now they really do. And I think
Mhm.
if we're aware of that and more mindful of that, that's when the
Mhm.
success can really happen. So, thank you for that. I want to kind of go back to the principles, and one of the principles is partnering works from the outside in.
Mhm.
That's I was like, I'm curious. Of course, I read that, and I'm like, okay, that makes total sense. Our listeners may be saying, what does that mean? So I happen to know because I read, but what does it mean to the listeners who may not understand what that means?
Well,
Outside in.
and this is a good example of how do you build your organization's muscles, because you have to partnering isn't a sales function. it isn't the seller in the field that's going to partner. It is the way you go to market. It is how you do business. It is the way you treat your customers. It is the way you treat your employees. And that's what we teach in the system for partnering. And so if I am looking at partnering with my customer, I have to understand their needs. I have to understand their goals. I have to understand their business. By the way, not just the business I do with them, I need to understand their business as a whole. And so the outside in is really first starting there and then working back into what you need and you want.
I love
And
that.
it's a fundamental shift in how we think. Um,
Absolutely. That's why I brought it up because I think people are listening and going, "I never thought of it that way."
I got to sell this
Um,
product. I got to do this. I got to do this. Right.
exactly, and then we start slamming them with customer centric, and we have the customer in the middle, and then where's the partner? How does the partner figure it out? This is not exactly easy, right? I mean, we have to really kind of put the cards on the table here, Teresa. This can be complicated. And when you're dealing in a complicated sales process, now you layer this on top of it. You really need to have that education. That book that you put out is going to revolutionize how people think about this because it's not just one layer that you kind of afterthought, hey, let's bring the partner in, or who are we going to partner with? All that has to be done ahead of time so you have the right synergy with the customer or the prospect, that you're bringing the right partner in and they're aligned with your vision. The worst thing you can do, right, is go to a meeting and have the partner say something completely different than what you're saying, right?
Yes.
So the
100.
outside in is really kind of making it so there's a synergy there, and you're building that muscle, as you say, between the two
Yeah.
parties. And I love it. I love it. And
Well,
yeah, go
and
ahead.
the other thing, just kind of going back to organizations who think they want to partner or think they want to have strategic alliances, or they think they need to have technology alliances, or they think they need to have a consulting network, or they think they need to have channel partners, right? Or a distribution network. Any of those, you have to look in the mirror too and really understand, are you ready? Do you have the elements that you need in order to have an engine that
Yeah.
isn't going to go poop, poop, poop? It's going to really go fast, right? And so we teach that whole piece of how do you get that engine of the car racing so that
Yes.
you can go have those partnerships and make them successful and scale.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love your passion about it, and
Awesome.
it shows and it comes through. And I think that when you do something like that and you follow your purpose and your why,
Mhm.
Teresa, this is when you get to change the world. This is when you get to impact the next generation coming up. I so
That's
love that.
really important to me is the
Yeah,
next evolution and helping, and propelling their success maybe faster than we did. And AI is going to do that. AI is going to help them.
yeah,
But this business relationship, trust building, people, again, it's going to become more important because it's going to become our value, right? Is deep domain expertise in this new AI world. There's a lot going on around what do humans become in the new AI world? What is the workplace look like?
yeah.
And this business relationships piece is really, really going to be more important.
I couldn't agree more. Look, my whole talk on AI is we have to learn to coexist with AI. And I think that
Mhm.
AI it does have a purpose and it does have a use. But business is a human infinite game. Always
Mhm.
will be. It's been like that from the beginning of time, and it will be till the end. Whether the AI comes in full force or not, business is a human infinite game. And you're coming to that in the partner world is really going to be a game changer. And I appreciate you doing this because I think what's going
Yeah.
to happen here is people are going to realize that it is a human infinite game, and the partners need to be in this whole quotient, right? And they have to be part of this, no matter what
And
happens with technology.
we have an AI app. It can also be accessed via the web that integrates into organizations so that it can form synergy with. So let's say my partnering success IP and 7 years of deep partnering expertise combined with your growth mindset, your book. Imagine if we can put those two together and maybe we take a customer like Charles Green or someone else, and all of a sudden the three of us IP is combined to bring new kind of value to a customer. That's the kind of thing and innovations we're talking about now.
Yeah, it looks like
So
you and I are gonna have many conversations.
we need to have more conversations because there is some incredible opportunities with this AI, the advent of AI, when you do this right. And not in the general ChatGPT world.
Great.
I'm talking about in very specific domains of expertise.
So I hope people listening up here, when you're talking, I mean, AI, everybody's talking about it. It is definitely a place for it, and it's being used in various applications. But what Teresa is talking about, and what I talk about, is the ability to coexist with AI, leverage that for an advantage, but never forget the fact that business is a human infinite game. Talking about business acceleration, you're talking about community acceleration and orchestration. Those are the kinds of things you're talking about with the PQI. So now I want to kind of pivot into
Okay.
where the book goes into trust and the Partnering Quotient Index. I can tell how excited you are about this.
I know.
And of
I'm
course,
super proud of it.
yeah, and you're speaking my language. I
Mhm.
talk about building engaged cultures and how you build trust and how you release those chemicals to build trust in your body. And I just can't wait to hear your take on this. So I'm gonna just
Yeah.
unleash you here and just go for it.
Well, it's interesting when PQI first came out, I thought for sure we were going to be doing it with vendors and their partners but where it went first is we're doing trust building workshops with sales organizations and we're doing trust building workshops with teams
I
that
love
are
it.
in conflict because they just came together from an M&A and they're fighting like crazy, you know? And so you can see the success stories in the book about how trust acceleration solves your internal teaming and then you get to go do it with the partners. And now we're doing, partner conferences and more about PQI, but it still starts with me understanding myself and then me understanding others and how they build trust and learning a new language. It's almost like anybody know body language? Like, body language and you start to be able to read body language. Well, you'll start to be able to read your PQI language and you start to be able to go, oh, wow, look at that. She's an energizer. That's how she builds trust. I might want to adjust my style accordingly.
Right, right.
And
This is
so,
all about the what I teach and I learned from the best is the triad of influence, right? What are you focusing
Mhm.
on? What's your language and what's your physiology? So, we're sort of the yin and the yang because I come in on the body language, I come in at
Mhm.
the physiology and how you showing
Mhm.
up to build
Mhm.
that trust. What do you need? What's the language you need to use? And
Absolutely.
then you bring in the science of how you do that with partners, and this is a
Mhm.
really good match. So people that are listening, it's not just the science; it's also the art. And you've got both here with this, what we'll call the PQI. That's the
PQI.
science and the art, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure the listeners are getting that yet. I want to make sure they understand that. I want to double down on that. So talk about the art piece of this science because
Yeah.
there's some serious science behind it. You talked about three universities, several years.
Mhm.
There's a science behind this, just like there's neuroscience behind what I do. But
Yeah.
what's the art? Get to
Well,
the
the art is the beautiful part, right? The art is how PQI in different cultures manifests itself. It's how PQI with women versus men in different industries, in different roles starts to manifest itself. It's how I can start to speak. Maybe I speak a CEO's language differently than I would have talked to them before because I understand that their love language, their trust building language is in strategy and in data and in information. Or their trust building language is in calmness and quietness and not getting all emotional because that's not how they build relationships. In fact, when you go like this, you build less relationships with that person. And so we need to adjust and learn, and that's the art of it because that isn't easy and everybody's different.
Yeah. I mean, so yes, you're right up my alley. So I think it's wonderful. And I think what's great about this book and about what you're doing and you personally, and you've got so much energy around this, is you're looking at it from both those lenses and you're
Mhm.
really making it a priority to do both. And we have so many books out there and so many methodologies and we have a lot of science around business. What
Mhm.
we don't have a lot of is marrying science with the art. And,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of that going on, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. I know you are too.
Wow.
You're running a public company. I've done that so many times. I've worked with public companies, and we've got to, you've got shareholder value, you've got stockholders to answer to, you've got to have operational cadence and excellence. You have a science behind this. It's not going to do anything unless you have the art behind it and the human
Mhm.
factor behind it. And that's what I love about what you're bringing to the table. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for doing that. Look, at Achieve Unite, you harness this psychometric assessments, and of course, that my world is all about neuroscience, and I do a number of assessments. And the system's called the PQ1, right? How does this all help with partnerships? Say this is the science part. What is this the psychometric assessment do for it?
Yeah. Well, and we have two levels of assessments. So we have a very science-based assessment for the organization called the Value Measurement Index, which is also in the book, and
Yep.
readiness assessments if they're not that mature. So those are also very science-based. I don't want to, the individual is critical, but the organization has to build a culture of partnering and they got to get it right.
From the
And
top,
so
right?
from the top down, exactly. And so I want to make sure that we capture that piece in
Yeah.
this assessment phase. And then the individual assessment is the PQI, the Partnering Quotient Index trust assessment that we've spent some time talking about today. And that's really powerful. And we've had several thousand people go through it now. It's been in market about a year. And so we're really going to that next level. And I truly believe it sits on top of Strength Finders and DISC and those others, but I think it could be the next one because
Mhm.
it's all about these trusted relationships.
That's one. I love that. I love that you're bringing that to corporate, and I love that you're getting that out there to more executives have to realize that it's not about the Briggs Meyer anymore. It's not. It's really more about the personalities and how they work well together, and what
That's
what
exactly
like you
right.
said, what kind of meeting do they want? Do they want they want it netted out, or they want more detail, or how do you build trust and rapport with the people on the other side of that table? And it's you're talking my speak. It's great. I love it. Uh,
Really?
that's
Thank
wonderful,
you.
wonderful, wonderful. You have many different core kind of principles that you bring to the table, and I
Mhm.
really enjoyed reading about them because every one of them hit a chord with me in my 4-decade career. And I also got a few like, oh, I missed that one. I wish I had done that. Yeah, it was a really great learning. Yeah, I kind of got into my growth mindset and said, this is really cool. I'm learning something, even though and
Mhm.
I can apply it here as I do my keynotes. I'm going to
Mhm.
apply some of these really good principles, and of course, give you credit for them. But I want to make sure we really go with the audience here, because the audience here is go-to-market executives. And it could be salespeople, it could be customer success, it could be legal, it could be
Mhm.
anybody in here, professional services, it could be
Mhm.
obviously the head of partners, which would obviously get a lot out of this. So let's get into this. I really want to get into the meat now, Teresa, and go into what are these core principles of the successful partner ecosystem that you really need to focus on, and maybe give us the ones that maybe people haven't really thought of, and let's dive into it and have some fun.
Great. Well, let's talk about first of all, the system is divided into 3 buckets.
Yeah.
One is business relationships. So
Yep.
how do you build fundamental, authentic, trusted business relationships, much more than just transactional?
Right.
And you can't do that with everybody. So who are you prioritizing as your partners? And how are you going to invest and develop them both personally and professionally? So the business relationships piece is critical. And then the second part of the system for partnering is all around
Mm.
business acceleration. So, as an example, if we're going to accelerate each other's business, remember, it's not just about my business or your business, it's
Mm.
about growing both of our businesses together. What does that joint mission look like? Not my mission, not your mission. What's the joint mission? What does success look like that we can both get super excited about and celebrate 3 years from now, or 1 year from now, or when the deal is closed, or whatever that is, depending on those roles you talked about? So the
Yeah.
business acceleration piece, and there's a whole 5 Ps of how you do business acceleration and all of that. But then the third piece of partnering is this whole ecosystem community. Who are what communities are you participating in for your business? What communities should I be participating in if I want to build partnering as a muscle? And there's personal communities and there's professional communities. And so how do those overlap? And, we teach in the book about communities, and then we teach you how to build your community strategy yourself. And so that's also there. And yeah, it's cool because there's a whole suite of, like, are you good at partnering? Are you personally good at partnering?
Right.
Is your company good at partnering?
Right.
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 And you can self-assess, wow, I'm not really doing very well in these areas, or wow, I'm really good at this,
Right.
both from an individual standpoint, but also from an organization standpoint, because this whole partnering culture thing is no joke. It's
No,
real. And
it's
so
real.
you have to get good at partnering in the organization.
Part 3 of the book, I think you talked about at the beginning. I just want to go back and dive in because I know people are taking notes, so I want to make sure they're writing this stuff down. But you talked about the 5 Ps a little bit at a high level. Can you kind of go through them one more time for me to kind
Yeah.
of get people to write them down here?
So when we talk about business acceleration, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about several of the different P's of partnering, right? So one is you've got to have the right people doing your partnering at the front end. You got to have the right organization structure to support the partnering. You've got to have the right sellers doing partnering. So that's the people side of partnering. We talk about the partners. Who are they? Do we have the right ones? How do you know you have the right ones? How do you know who your competition's doing? So getting this partner, the who right of partnering.
Yep.
And then it becomes about these processes, because why do we build partner initiatives in the first place? Well, we build them to build trust at scale and to do more with just than one person and one person. So if that's going to be the case, the programs and the processes and kind of the foundation of the house has to be really strong, or that partnering is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so we talk about these, or we're not going to be able to have a race car that goes fast. So we talk about these partnering principles and these processes and these programs. And the principles are really important, because if you have an executive team that is aligned 100% to your partnering principles, guess what happens when there's a tough deal and the CFO and the legal counsel and the CRO have to get together?
Yeah.
If they're aligned on partnering principles, they're going to figure that out pretty easily, right?
Yes,
Because there's a set of principles that are their guiding light for doing
Right.
business together.
Right.
So the principles become really important. And
Now,
so these P's are all about these different aspects of partnering that you have to get right.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to understand these, and it's easy to kind of remember them too, the 5 Ps. And I think that from my perspective, it's something that you can take little things out of this book, these little tidbits, as I call them, and you can implement them. You don't have to implement everything.
That's
What a
right.
great way to start. So,
Yeah.
where would you start? You have a lot of stuff going on here, and there's so many things you bring to the market. If
Yeah.
I'm a startup, let's just take it from there. If I'm a startup company, I've got 20 people selling, and I'm just building a business. Where do I start with this? I mean, without going through every little
That's right.
concept, where would a company start to get the
You need
most
2
benefit?
things. You figure out what 3 or 4 bets as a startup would get you the most lift. And you identify those 3 bets and you prove yourself that those are the right 3 bets. And there's a whole exercise of how you get to that point in the
Sure.
book. But picking the right bets is really important. You don't pick 1 and you don't pick 20. It's somewhere well in between, because you can't only have 1 or 2, because what if they both fail? But you can't have 20 because your organization can't handle that. So that is really important. And then the second piece is, okay, I want a partner. Am I ready? And there's an assessment in the book to figure out what are the top things you have to have so I can partner. I need to have a legal agreement. I need to have a website. I need to have a way to register opportunities. Certain things that are just fundamental. It's like brushing your teeth in the morning.
Yeah.
You have to have those. And so those are probably the 2 places I would start.
That's wonderful. And then that book steps you through sort of an assessment to find out where
Yes.
you are in that life cycle, if you will, of success.
That's exactly right.
Well, welcome everybody to another Journey Cast here with Scalibrium. with your host, Rob Swymer. So grateful to have our guest today, Theresa Caragol. Theresa, how are you?
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this. And in my over 4 decade career of selling and leading sales, partners was so important and so misrepresented as well. And
Mhm.
people just, a lot of companies I worked with just didn't get it. They didn't get what the
Mhm.
importance was that they brought to the table. So I'm really looking forward to a great conversation. I
Me
can't wait. I
too.
want to dive right in. You got so much to talk about.
Let's
And
do
of
it.
course, your recent success with your best-selling book, and I want to talk
Mhm.
about that as well. So before we get going, yeah, great. Put it up there. I love it. But yeah, hey, fellow author, I want to make sure you're plugged as much as possible.
Thank you. You're great
Um,
that way.
yeah, yeah, but I'm excited to collaborate with you today, Theresa. I
Me
really
too.
am. And before we get started, yeah, I want to give you the mic and just do a little intro of sort of who you are and
Yeah.
how you got to this place today, and then we'll start digging in.
Well, Theresa Caragol, founder and CEO of Achieve Unite, former tech executive at a number of big tech companies. Kind of grew up it was more a boys' world. I was one of the only females at the table for many years.
Hmm.
And then had my two little boys and was traveling all over the world. And it was really causing me a lot of stress.
Hmm.
And so I decided that wasn't the right thing for me to do. And what I didn't know is becoming an entrepreneur would be such an incredible journey. And that's what I and my team have been up to for the last 7 years. And I'm super proud of the company that we built and the clients that we serve and the
Hmm.
people that we help and the
Wow.
impact that we make. And I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing now. And so, it works out and when you do things for the right reasons. So, yeah.
Nothing better than living your purpose, your why, right? So this
It
is,
is.
yeah, it's
And
so,
it's amazing. Like you live your why. And like yesterday, I was on a call with the president of the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals. Hang up, and there was somebody else that I had met there that wants to introduce us into the healthcare industry because we're serving, and we're helping and we're making an impact and we're doing good. And I think that makes a huge difference.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Before we sign off, though, I want to, say any last minute advice for people that are out there. Maybe they're starting out and they're trying to figure this out, or they've got some real contentious relationship with partners, or they're trying to get to that next level.
Mhm.
What's your final thought or advice?
My final bit of advice is partnering is a marathon, it's not a sprint,
Hmm.
and it's a way of life, and I wish I had learned that young. I think I learned it pretty young, but I would even say I wish I try to teach my kids this,
Hmm.
and there's a concept in the book, which we actually have the trademark on, called partner lifetime value, and,
Hmm.
we all know customer lifetime value, and we know if we treat customers well for the long run, they stay with us. Well, imagine if we treat partners and invest in their businesses for the long run, they might buy 10 Mercedes over the course of their lifetime, not just one, right? And
Yeah.
so imagine partners can go sell 100 Mercedes or 1,000 Mercedes for you over the course of your life. So partnering is an exponential multiplier when you do it right.
I love that. That's a great way to end it. I think that it's partner lifetime value. That is so cool. I love that because everybody knows lifetime value, customer
Yeah.
lifetime value,
Yeah.
partner lifetime value, and that really ties in well to
Are
what we
you
talked about being a human infinite game.
thoughts?
And this is all a marathon. It is, and we can't force it. It's got to be natural. And your book is really perfect for doing. It's a
Mm,
roadmap. It's a roadmap or a
yeah.
blueprint, however you want to look at it,
Yeah.
for your journey. Your journey with partners,
Yeah.
and that everybody has a journey, and this is it. So I love that you did that. I love your energy around it. I had a
Thank
blast
you.
talking to you. Yeah,
I did too. A lot of fun.
I
Thank you.
wish you nothing but success. And I know
Thank you.
that
Thank you.
all of our listeners got a lot out of this, and I'm sure they were writing notes feverishly. Hopefully not while they were driving, but I'll tell you what, they're going to get a lot out of this, and because this is the little things that make it a banner year, a career year. It's that those are the things that separate a good from a great, and what I like to say, the next level of outstanding. And you can be outstanding as an organization or as a sales team if you do these principles, if you implement the 5 Ps, if you really go through this and assess where you are and be honest about where you are, then
Yeah,
you can
right.
start your journey on the right foot. So thank you for bringing this to the world,
Thank
Theresa.
you.
So, Theresa, just to wrap up, how do people get a hold of you? How do they find you?
Oh my goodness, that would be fabulous. You can find me on LinkedIn, Theresa, Theresa Caragol. You can find Achieve Unite on LinkedIn. You can find us on our website, achieveunite.com, or my website, teresacaragol.com. You can email me, Teresa at achieveunite.com, or you can call my cell phone.
Oh, wonderful. And
You
hold
give
up
me
that
my
book.
cell
They
phone.
can find you with that book.
And you can find me on Amazon as well on
There
the
you go.
book. That's right.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So cool to see you. I can't wait to see you again. And thank you so much for your time. I know how
Thank
valuable it is.
you.
All right.
Fabulous.
Now, you have a number of examples and case studies in your book. I really enjoyed reading those.
Thank you.
I like how you weave them into sort of, throughout the entire book. I'm a storyteller, obviously, like you are. So it really hit me hard when I read those, and I could relate to some, and some were like, oh, I didn't think of that, right? So do you have a couple of stories that you can kind of share that maybe organizations were successful, and then maybe I'll ask you where where they weren't so
Well, they
successful.
weren't successful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do one of each, for the listeners.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll do a couple of different examples. I mean,
Yeah.
look at, Datto sold to Kaseya for 64 billion. And that was a culture that it basically, Rob Ray lived the values of this book and so did the CEO from everything they did. Atlassian, Co-Mystery and the team at Atlassian built that company with getting partners to build their businesses around Atlassian. So all these entrepreneurial companies around the world were building businesses off of Atlassian. And Co-Mystery and that team did an amazing job. Salesforce.com has one of the biggest partner ecosystems in the world and never transacts a single deal through them.
Right.
But these companies have built businesses around Salesforce. They built practices at Accenture and
Right.
Deloitte. So those are some of the really big success stories. I think the people, when Cox and when Comcast and Masergy came together, there is a whole story of the infighting and what was happening. And I watched before my very eyes those groups build trust and build relationships and begin to have difficult conversations. And they went on to partner very successfully as a team to get that integration done. And they were ahead of everybody else in the company because they were able to accelerate trust.
Yeah.
We saw the same thing happen at TD SYNNEX and Lenovo. We did a big program, a change management program, and those folks were ahead of everyone else by, they said, 6 months to a year because of
Wow.
the trust build that happened with them.
Well,
So that's the good part of partnering.
any horror stories that you were to share?
I have lots of horror stories. I don't want to call anybody out on the horror stories. I will tell you this.
XYZ company.
I watch these SaaS companies that think they start and they think they can do direct and indirect at the same time, and they can only give the partners a little bit but not get them everything. That doesn't work. They cripple, they crawl, they don't get there fast enough. So that's one piece. I have lots of, people don't get the strategy right and they think they can just buy a PRM or they can just pick a partner and work with them. Those don't usually work either. You got to get your strategy and your initiative right. And you got to know the best.
You force it. You can't force it. No, exactly. I say a lot, it's a natural progression to where this opportunity exists.
Right.
And it
Right.
has to be natural. And that's part of building trust. It becomes natural. It's not forced. It's a collaborative, living and breathing relationship that, like I said, a human infinite relationship. Yeah.
I love it.
Now, I really want to dig into yeah, I'm just curious as a fellow author, like, how did you get into the book and why did you write the book? And,
Wow.
get kind of give me a little bit of a little bit of the story about how the book came to fruition.
Yeah. Well, the system for partnering success is really based on the work that we do for clients over many years. And and there's many clients featured in here and success stories and examples because you get to a point where it is a science, right? And you
Yeah.
do know what the recipe is and what the
Would it
best practices are and where people go wrong. And that's all what we wanted to be able to help. And somebody said to me, "Well, are you worried about sharing all your IP with the world?" And I was like, "No, because the more you serve and you help, the universe just has a way, you know?" And so yeah, I'm really glad that we've done this. And it's super the other thing that I'm really proud of is it's super interactive. So there's assessments, there's questions, there's worksheets, there's
Oh,
exercises you could do
oh,
online or in the book and use with your teams to
yes.
help build this whole partnering muscle.
So you're activating cultures now to
Yeah.
be mindful of how important partnering for success really is. And that's really what you're doing. And I got to tell you, you mentioned science. Science, and the science of selling. It can be a little dry, right? It can be a little dry, and I now am pivoted to the what I call the woo woo, but not really the woo woo. It's the must have, right? The soft selling aspect of it.
Yeah.
How did you get so passionate about a science and something that's not really, exciting?
That wasn't it. I know.
How
Well, a
did you
couple
get
of things.
there?
I know. Well, first of all, I do believe what we used to call soft skills,
Yeah.
especially with the advent of AI, are going to be these business relationships are going to be fundamental and way more important than ever before. And so they're not really soft skills anymore. They're essential, they're critical, they're fundamental, they're core.
Yeah.
And so that is, and I'm really glad to hear you say the culture that's featured in the book in a big way. And it's also a big part of our offerings and what we do for companies.
Yeah.
And then, you mentioned science and the trust index, which is all science based.
Yeah.
And I think we're the first in the world to put a science to how you build business trust.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And of course, my background where I activate my audience with physical intelligence, getting them getting them out of that dopamine cortisol kind of seesaw, right? And activating them with the right chemicals in their body, being able to unleash those chemicals and being able to be aware of them, right? And this is all part of we're so aligned, even though our books are much different. We're so aligned with the aspect of building an engaged culture. Would you agree? This is really
100%.
that's what it's all about.
Mhm.
Gallup did a study years ago. Engaged cultures, companies with engaged cultures, are 22% more profitable. I know that you're going to be even more profitable if you engage your partner ecosystem
Yeah.
because they know things you don't know, right? That's what
Yeah.
it's all about. So, okay,
Yes.
so I love what you talked about the muscle, and I do that a lot for certainty and
Yeah.
resilience. And I talk about going to the mental gym for building that
Oh,
muscle.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, write it down. It's good.
I will.
So
No.
I'll tell you what, though. I want you to expand upon that. What do you mean by that? So when you build the muscle for partner success, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. It's not really something we
We're
talked about, but you mentioned it, and I'm like, I can relate to it. So what does that mean to you when you talk
So
about?
let's talk about me as an individual, and then we'll talk about the organization. So me as an individual, in our trust index, which is called PQI, which is the science of partnering trust, built with Arizona State, the Notre Dame, and the University of Glasgow, 3 universities, has extremely high validity and reliability. So 3 years, took 3 years to build. Now it's a very, very simple assessment, but it took a long, long time to get to what it
Sure,
is
they
today.
all do. Yeah.
Yeah, So there are 5 trust building profiles. So I learn what my dominant trust building muscle is, and I might learn in the course of the workshop what your dominant trust building muscle is. And guess what? We don't have the same dominant trust building muscles. So we first have to understand how each of us build trust. then we have to realize, wow, you know what? If I can widen and deepen my own trust building acumen, by the way, if I can accelerate trust, I can accelerate innovation. If I can accelerate trust, I can accelerate collaboration. If I can accelerate trust, I can accelerate revenue. I can accelerate productivity, right? So I have to widen my ability to build partnering trust. And I
Yeah.
do that by learning how others build trust. I do that by developing my own muscles in trust building. And so that's the whole people side of trust building. And there are certain muscles in trust building, like learning how to have difficult conversations, that regardless of any trust building profile, you've got to get good at if you want to have long relationships, you know. So that's sort of the person. And all of that is in this book and teaches you about how to do that.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
And
that.
then
Love that.
it's so fun, so much fun. It's one of my favorite things that we're doing as a company right now, and we're now have PQI practitioners, one in Asia and Europe, and so we're now building others' businesses, and they're using PQI and trust building as a core part of what they're doing in their organization. So it's very exciting for us.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite quotes in the book is about KPIs. Partnerships without clear metrics are like sailing without a map. I love this. You might catch a good wind once in a while, but you're just as likely to drift off course. I love that quote.
Oh, it's a
And
good line. I love that
yeah,
one.
that was a good one. It came right out, you know.
Yeah.
So you say that it's the goals, key performance indicators, right? We all work with KPIs, but tell me more about this, and our listeners start writing notes because this is going to be valuable. Take your time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up. So, you talk about KPIs, key performance indicators, and there's
Yeah.
what we call lagging metrics,
Yeah.
right? Let's say that we set our joint mission and our joint goal is we want to collectively do $1 million of revenue. Well,
Yeah.
we call that a lagging indicator or a lagging KPI.
Right.
But what if our leading indicator of success is we want to engage 100 people in our methodology and they're actively using our new AI solution as one of their tips and tricks every day for success?
Good.
Okay, there's a leading indicator metric that's really exciting. And we know if they do that, it's going to lead to success and revenue growth and shareholder value and all of those things. And so these KPIs have to be measurable. They have to be joint. There has to be something in it for both of us in these KPIs. And they have to be not just lagging indicators, but leading indicators of success, the activity, the behaviors, the things that happen before the treasure chest actually is found.
What are some of those things that happen before the treasure chest? I love that. So what do we look for? Write this down. People that are listening, I want to make sure they
Yeah.
get these tidbits. So what should they be looking for?
So you might say a partner sourced opportunity is a leading indicator. You might say the use of our app that has both of our company's intellectual property in it is a leading indicator and it gets accessed for all of these different topics. That could be a leading indicator. Sometimes companies that have really technical products and they do a joint certification offering, that could be a leading indicator.
Yeah.
It could be, there's a more and more around co-selling. The partner, the reps have to come together, by the way, not just at the demand generation, and to your point, not just as the deal closes, they need to work together in the whole customer journey. So we might find some leading indicators of success that we're going to measure for the sellers early in the customer journey. Maybe they're joining your call. That might be a leading indicator when you're the CRO and you have that partner on the phone and they know as much as the rep does. That's one of
Yeah.
your leading indicators.
I love it. I love it.